I understand. You know what? This is not necessarily a science class, right? So, yeah, I understand you want to understand. Just get it. No, get it to me later. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. And can you? I don't have the clicker to turn the TV on. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get together and come on together. That's great. Actually, why don't we set it right here on top of the stack? That way, anybody else that needs it can use it. All right. If you have your paper, this is me. Yeah. Thank you. If I could just get over to the HDMI 2, I think it is. Excellent. Perfect. Come on. There we go. Thank you. All right. Papers here? Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. If you have your papers, go ahead and turn them in up here. Your papers from yesterday, I did return to your boxes. And Quaid, you're Quaid, right? I just realized that you're a horseman. When I was grading your paper, I was like, Quaid Horseman. I know Quaid Horseman. What? Quaid's grandma and grandpa are working with Interact Ministries up on Lazy Mountain, and that when we first moved to Alaska, that's where we lived. And you and your family actually lived up there on the mountain with us for a little while. You guys were running around playing on the swing set with my kids, so that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I actually just ran into your mom not too long ago. She's at Fairview Loop Baptist. Yeah, that's awesome. And your sister just got married, right, Jane? Yeah, a year ago. Wow, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. And then you went into the Marine Corps about the same time that my son went into the Navy. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, pretty awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's go ahead and talk. Let's talk about your papers real quick. What chapter did you read? What was something that jumped out at you that you thought, man, this was really cool, or something that you wanted to share with the class? Anything, anybody? If not, we'll just move on. You say, hey, I didn't see anything that was important. It was like, I don't know, it was homework. Yeah.
Because their argument for theirs is that there just has to have been something in the beginning that always was.
Right. Right.
These rules of the universe are just, they had to apply, like the logic, the reasoning.
Right.
And it really is a bigger jump that nothingness had to have had logic, reasoning,
Right.
all of these rules, and things that just happened to
Right.
be there.
Yeah.
Believing an intelligent creator intention.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that actually goes into the essentially atheists have to come to that the universe itself is eternal. Right? The universe itself is everlasting. That even though the observable universe, the stuff, the matter, the energy, all of that is proven to be finite. In other words, it had a beginning. We know it does because it expands. I think if we get into this, the distant starlight one, that will be a thing we'll talk about today. But they can't have a beginning because what's before the beginning? What caused the Big Bang? They don't have an answer. So they have to believe that the Big Bang had to come from something, from somewhere. And if that's the case, then essentially the universe just keeps recycling itself. That eventually the universe will enter some kind of state that will have to then collapse in on itself and become another Big Bang. Yet all the evidence is entropy, and what's going to happen is the universe is just going to continue to dissipate all of its energy until you have the universe has a cold death, which is no energy transference, no all of the energy has been converted to to useless energy or dispersed energy, and all of the matter will have zero heat or zero light, and it will just be simply cold and dead. That doesn't bring us back to another Big Bang, right? There's nothing in the observable universe that would indicate that it's recycling itself. But they have to keep coming back to that. That at some point all of the rules of the universe, all of the cosmological constants have to be true regardless of the universe, right? Or, of course, the big one now is multiverse theory, which is that there's at least 27 different dimensions, and that we are just one universe out of an infinite number of universes, and that, of course, we just happen to be living in the universe, and we just happen to be living on the planet in that universe that can sustain life. Just happen to, right? I mean, there are an infinite number of other universes in which life kind of works but doesn't really. And you just happen to be living in the universe that actually does work. Anyway, happy circumstances, I guess. All right, so let's go right into it because of our time. Did you have something else? Go right ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say that one thing that was really interesting to me was like the difference between the creationist viewpoint and the evolutionist viewpoint, where creation believes that like with the principle of life comes from life, right?
Right.
We say God is life, like he defines what that is, like he goes back forever. So life came from life. Well, the evolutionist perspective says that life came from non-life.
Right.
And that is illogical in itself because life that has no meaning, has no
Right.
way of reasoning, has no logic, supposedly somehow created logic. And that
Right.
itself is fundamentally illogical. So.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly right. Exactly right. Logic can't come from illogic. Right? Yeah. All right. So here are our potentials for today. For Wednesday, we've got chapter 5, which is what about the gap and ruin reconstruction theory? Is there a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2? I could give you the preview on that. The answer is no. But we could talk about why that's no. Then there's chapter 16, which is where does the Ice Age fit? Was there an Ice Age? When was the Ice Age? Was it before the flood, after the flood, during the flood? What about the Ice Age? Then chapter 18, are aliens real? Are there aliens? Okay, that's a fun one. Yes, I do. I do have slides that will cover that if you want to talk about it. Then we have chapter 18. Does distant starlight prove the universe is old? I have it bolded there because if I had my druthers, that's the one I'd like to get into. And then chapter 26. Why does God's creation include death and suffering? That's a little bit more of a philosophical thing rather than a scientific thing. But again, I'd love to get into it. If we have time, I'd still like to get 2 in. Obviously, with chapel and the shortened time, if we can if there's one that you pick, there's like, we could get through that quickly and try to get into the second one, that would be great. But if we only get through one and the conversation, the discussion is moving, then it's not a big deal to me. All right, so let's go ahead and go through these. Which one would you like to do? Chapter 5 first. Anybody want to do gap reconstruction theory? Anybody want to get into gap theory? No? Okay, good. I am glad. Okay. How about chapter 16? Where does the Ice Age fit in? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, okay, 5, 6, 7. Okay. How about are aliens real? Oh boy. All right. All right. Maybe we just need to go straight into it. Does distant starlight prove the universe is old? Quite a few. All right. 5, 6, 7. All right. And why does God's creation include death and suffering? All right, aliens it is. Here we go. Aliens it is. You guys. Oop. All right, here we go.
You're right. What have we done, Jacob? Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I took that away from you. Where is it? What am I looking for? 16. There we go. 18. Here we go. All right, let's talk about aliens. Are we alone? All right, I'm going to need you guys to pay attention now. All right. Are we alone in the universe? Are we alone in the universe? Obviously, aliens are something that is a very popular topic. It's a common theme in superhero movies and TV shows, science fiction. All right, and not just like the weird Martian kind of aliens. You also have like Superman is an alien, right? Venom is actually an alien. Lots of these superheroes themselves are aliens. And here we go. Sometimes the actual explanation for everything is what? Aliens, right? Because that's how you got to get to it. And by the way, I don't know if we really cover what they covered in this chapter, but I do want to cover it before we get into it, because one of the things that we've talked a little bit about already is the law of biogenesis, right? That life cannot spring from non-life. And because that is such a problem for atheists, for the naturalist, because that is such a problem for them, their theories many times gravitate toward what's called transpanspermia. All right, transpanspermia. That means the transference of life, the word sperm meaning seed, right? The transference of the seed of life to Earth from somewhere else. That all life on Earth was transferred here by something or someone else. That because we cannot get life from non-life here on Earth, what we do is we kick the can down the road and say it must have come from somewhere else. Well, what does that do? It just moves the problem from here to there. It's still a problem, right? But that's their answer. In fact, that is as commonly or as recently as I think it was last month, I read an article from I'm talking about a serious scientist. I'm talking about professors at major universities who teach it in their classrooms and use it as their theory for this is how life came about on Earth, is that it had to come from somewhere outside of the planet. It has to be alien. That we're all just a bunch of aliens. That we didn't really come up on Earth. And so the question then becomes, and here's where atheists struggle, okay? Because for their theory of evolution to be true, it has to be more likely rather than less likely, right? Evolution has to be something that is common, something that happens elsewhere. It can't just happen on this planet. All right, we're talking billions of planets, right? We're talking about trillions of planets, perhaps. I think I just heard just the other day that they have now identified some 1,400 exoplanets, i.e. planets that are outside of our solar system, that are in the habitable zone of their star. Habitable zone meaning that it is possible for life to exist on that planet. Then within the habitable zone, there is a smaller range of zone called the Goldilocks zone, which is the just right zone, meaning that the habitable zone is, yes, life could potentially exist in really, really harsh conditions. The Goldilocks zone is a much smaller, narrower band around a star in which life can thrive. Life can actually persist. All right, and out of the 1,400, again, I'm trying to remember the number. I want to say it was like 1,400, but out of the 1,400, only a dozen or so could be potentially in that Goldilocks zone, right? Of course, that's only the ones that they've actually seen. James Webb Telescope, we're seeing many, many more planets year by year. All right, so let's talk about this. There's efforts, government-funded efforts to try to reach out to intelligent life. SETI, which is the oh boy, what does SETI stand for? Intelligent Extraterrestrial Intelligence. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. And it's got big satellites and that are big satellite dishes that they just point out in space, and they're just listening, right? They're listening for any kind of transmissions that can be picked up, that can be recognized as intelligent. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is like I said, it is government funded. We're talking about lots of equipment, lots of very expensive equipment, and that's their job, is to listen for extraterrestrial life. And they spend their day just analyzing various signals that they see, and to see, is this a natural signal? Is this or is this a fake signal? Is this something that actually is just bouncing off our atmosphere? It's actually coming from Earth and we're seeing it, right? That's their job, yeah. So, yeah, right? It's like, guys, I could have told you already that you're not going to find anything. But that's their job, is to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. By the way, the reason why we're in such a hurry to get to Mars? There's two reasons, actually. Number one is we need to find out if there was ever life on Mars. When the moon shot was, when we were racing to get to the moon in the 60s, when the initial astronauts landed on the moon and they came back, when they came back, we're talking about Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and Alan Shepard, the other guy, no, Michael Collins. When they got back, do you know they quarantined them for days for fear that they might have some kind of extraterrestrial virus that was on the moon that we don't have, just in case they might come back with some kind of bug that would then infect the rest of the human race and we'd all die? That surely there could be a virus up there, there could be a bacteria up there could be some kind of fungus up there. Surely there's something alive on the moon. And what did they find? It's just a bunch of rocks. It's just a bunch of rocks. That's why we haven't gone back, because it's not that important. It's just a bunch of rocks, right? And they're not even really pretty rocks. They're just kind of regular rocks, okay? And they're not even valuable rocks. Now, if we got up there and there was like gold up there, if there was like iron up there, right, we'd be up there mining the moon. But it's just rocks. And so why do we got to get to the moon? Or why do we got to get to Mars? Two reasons. One reason is the potential of finding life. Oh, there's actual water on Mars, or there was frozen water on Mars, or there's evidence that there was water on Mars. And if there's water on Mars that was one time liquid, then you could potentially have life if you have liquid water. Right? Liquid water does not get you life. Liquid water only can sustain life if it is there. If it's not there, then liquid water doesn't get you anything. Right? There's ice all over the place that could have potentially been water at some point. Doesn't get you life. Right? Water is inorganic. Water is not an organic compound. Right? It's not life. So yeah, you could find all sorts of water on Mars. But they're like, oh, there's structures on Mars. They're constantly like, the lunar or the Mars rovers are like running around. It's like, oh, look at this thing. It looks like it could be a temple. Like, yeah, no, that's just a rock. It's just a rock, right? We human beings are really good at finding patterns in things, and we like to see, oh, look at that. It looks like a face. Like, the face on Mars, yeah. No, it's just a rock. It's just a rock. It just happens to look like something from above. We do that on the earth all the time, right? I mean, we find, Jesus' face in a grilled cheese sandwich and then sell it on eBay for $10,000, all right? And the other reason why we want to get to Mars is just in case we accidentally kill ourselves here on Earth and we need to go somewhere else, as if Mars is going to be a better option than Earth. Right? I don't care how warm the globe gets due to global warming. It's better than Mars, guys, all right? It is better than Mars. You could flood the entire state of Florida, and Earth is better than Mars, right? You can take the entire west coast of California and have a huge earthquake, and it falls into the sea. Earth is still better than Mars. Right? No. I did not say that Earth would be better if that. Please don't tell people that's what I said. Well, Dr. Olsen said it would be better if the... No, I said it would be better than Mars if that were to happen. Right? Because there's no life on Mars, and it is cold on Mars. And there's no rivers on Mars. There's no trees on Mars. There's no life on Mars. Right? And so... so, all right, let's get into this. The Christian response then is Christian responsibility to evaluate every idea against Scripture. What does the Bible say about that? What does the Bible say? Does the Bible indicate at all that there are aliens? By the way, there's two different ideas we're talking about here. One would be, is there organic life, i.e., any kind of organic material that could be growing? Or is there intelligent life? Right? Intelligent life is a very big difference to organic life. Right? And by the way, those are two of the steps that science, atheistic, naturalistic science, has no answer for. The first is, why is there stuff here rather than not stuff? Where'd the stuff come from? Right? How did everything begin? They can't answer that question. Two is, how did we get life from non-life? Organic compounds. How did you get even the basic building blocks of life from non-life, from inorganic compounds? They can't answer that question. The third is, where did intelligent life come from? At what point did life become intelligent? Did human beings come from? With morality, with self-awareness, with a soul. All right, where did that come from? They don't have an answer. All right. Okay. And because of that, they're looking for answers elsewhere. All right. The key question then is the idea of alien life compatible with the Bible? So I've heard a lot of Christians say, well, what does it matter if there's aliens? I mean, can't there's surely there could be aliens. I mean, the Bible doesn't say that there's no aliens, so why not? So let's get into that. Evolutionary, so the connection here, origins of alien life idea based on evolutionary assumption, Earth has to be not unique. Because if the Earth is unique in the entire universe, then they have to then be confronted with, then it must be designed that way. There's something special about the Earth. And if there's something special about the Earth, that means somebody made it. Somebody made it that way. Otherwise, all of their theories are based on the fact that evolution is common, that life is common. The entire universe should be teeming with life if it is a common thing, if it's just a natural way of the universe. An intelligent life would, again, just be a natural outcropping of that. Because, again, if evolution is something that just happens, because that's what happens, right? And, of course, if there's billions of planets, then it's inevitable that there's intelligent life. I've heard people they stake that claim, that it is inevitable that there is life. There has to be. Because if like I said, if evolution is true, then it would just make sense that there would be life elsewhere on other planets. The biblical contrast, though, Isaiah 45:18, Earth is unique. This world is unique. This world was created by God, especially by God. We're not told of God creating other planets or other earths or other worlds. Isaiah 45, let me see if we can find that here. So since I'm actually close to it, just happen to be close to it. Isaiah 45:18. For thus says the Lord, who created the heavens? Who is God? Who formed the earth and made it? Who has established it? Who did not create it in vain? Who formed it to be inhabited? I am the Lord, and there is no other. He formed this earth to be inhabited. He formed this earth for humans to thrive on it. We have all that we need physically on this planet for food and for survival, but also for luxury, for pleasure. He didn't just simply build this earth just so that we could survive on it. Can you imagine living on a planet that was just simply enough to survive? I mean, I know a lot of you guys are kind of outdoorists. You guys like to go out there and listening to Andy talk about snow cave camping. Like, no thanks. Sure, I guess you could do it, but there's a lot of things you could do. I guess you do it just so you know that you're alive, so that you appreciate when you do have a bed. You can appreciate when it isn't 32 degrees, 28 degrees in your. How cold is it in a snow cave? Can you get it warm in a snow cave? It gets pretty warm. I guess your body heat kind of radiates in there, and as long as you got body heat, you end up actually sweating and get warm in there. No thanks, I'm good. I can get warm under my covers just as easily. Thanks. But can you imagine if that was just life? Like that's all we had? Right? We couldn't do anything else. It was just the whole earth was just covered in snow and ice, and there would be no plants. There's no green plants, and we'd have to dig for anything to eat. And we were just in survival mode all the time. Right? No, God made this earth not only so that we could subdue it, but He made it so we can enjoy it. I mean, that's the beauty of this. Like, God didn't just make the earth just so that we could survive. Right? All right. According to Genesis 1, why did God make the sun, moon, and stars? What is the purpose of the sun, moon, and stars? To measure time, to set for the seasons. All right, they're for another purpose. They're not. We're told that that the planets and the other stars are simply there for us to be able to mark time. And by the way, that's not just simply. We can do that with just the sun and the moon, but the stars themselves don't just mark time as far as days and months and years, but can mark time during the night watch. You can navigate in a sailing vessel and know where you are and when you are on planet Earth based on where the stars are. So it gets even more detailed than that. There's even more use of the stars to navigate by, all right? That goes right into that verse that it's for times and seasons. That they can calculate where they are on earth and what time they are on earth by the stars. All right, God gave dominion of the earth to man, Psalm 115:16. Actually, is in Genesis 1 when He says that He gave man His own image. Why did He make His man His own image? He says it right there in the verse. So that we could have dominion over the planet. We could have dominion over nature. We are to rule over it. He did not get, by the way, I don't know that He gave us the stars for us to have dominion over. And of course, there's no mention of life created. I mean, if this is something that God is just completely silent about, right? There's nothing that God says about it. Then even if there was, God told us everything we're supposed to know, and so it would be futile to even speculate about things that are, unfalsifiable, right? You can say, well, yeah, but God has other planets or whatever. Yeah, but he didn't tell us about those. And so why would and if he didn't tell us about those, then we're not supposed to know about them. And I'm not trying, but believe me, that's not my answer. That's not what I'm saying. But my point is even if it was, why are you speculating about it? If God didn't tell you, Jesus specifically said to his disciples that there are many other things that he would want to teach them, but he can't because they're not ready for it. All right, Scripture is God's completed word to man. Now, when Adam and Eve were created, God spoke to them, and that was enough for them. When God spoke to Abraham, he called Abraham out of Ur. He had just enough information for Abraham to follow him. He didn't have the whole Bible. He didn't know anything about the Romans or crucifixes or didn't know anything about the tribes of Israel that would come after him. Right? Didn't know anything about Jerusalem or King David. He didn't have any of that information. He didn't even have the law. He didn't have the 10 Commandments. But it was enough for Abraham. That's all the information Abraham needed. Abraham wasn't supposed to go around questioning whether or not God gave him all the information he needed. He followed what God told him to do, and that's what he was blessed for. By faith, Abraham went out when he was called. He didn't even know where he was going, actually. He didn't even know the end of the story. When Moses gave the law and the 10 Commandments and the pattern for the tabernacle, there was so much more information. The Torah, the Pentateuch was given to Moses, right? There's there's nothing about the New Jerusalem. There's nothing about the millennial kingdom. There's nothing about even heaven and hell is not mentioned in the Pentateuch. Why? Because God didn't need to tell them that. They weren't supposed to know it. It wasn't something that they were supposed to be curious about. They just followed what God had for them. We are so blessed because we've got 66 books. We've got so much here that we need to be concerned about. We don't need to be concerned about things that God hasn't told us about. But again, that is a really big what if that I'm not worried about. All right. So again, we can't argue from silence. That's not a good argument. You can't just simply say, well, the Scripture doesn't say that there aren't aliens. I mean, the Scriptures are not explicit about a lot of things. Right? It doesn't tell us that there's not a lot of things. But, all right. So theological problems here. Adam's sin brought on death into the world. If you have intelligent life on other planets, you then have to ask yourself, does that life have free will? Does that intelligence also include sin? Does that intelligent life include the redemptive plan? We know that Jesus put on human flesh. He died as a man. We know his blood and atonement applies to the human race, to the human descendants. It's the race of Adam that he died for. Only human beings. I know Mark 16:15 says, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature, but I think we can pretty well easily imply that he does not mean squirrels. All right, we don't need to preach the gospel to squirrels. What? What? Oh no. I've been doing this wrong this whole time. All right? It's for the race of Adam that Jesus died, because Jesus came as a man, Jesus died as a man, Jesus rose as a man, and he is the second Adam. He is our kinsman redeemer. Okay? So if aliens sinned, they could not have been redeemed by Christ's blood, because they're not blood relatives of Christ. He wouldn't be their kinsman redeemer. We know 1 Peter, he says that he died once for all. Well, what if aliens were sinless? Even sinless aliens would suffer the effects of Adam's sin, because the whole world, all of creation groans, according to Scripture. Not just the world, not just this globe, not just human life, but all of creation groans because of Adam's sin. So they would still suffer the effects of Adam's sin and wouldn't know anything about it. And shows the incompatibility of alien life with a biblical worldview. So the Bible, I think if we just went with, okay, what does the Bible say about that? We could just close the Bible and be done. The Bible says there's no aliens, or it doesn't say there's no aliens, and therefore, and it would be illogical for there to be aliens. I could just say, we'll leave it at that. But you didn't come here for that. You didn't come here for that answer. Let's talk about the science of it. So this is called the Fermi paradox, okay? The Fermi paradox. Because the problem isn't just for us. The problem is for atheists as well. Remember, their paradigm says that there should be aliens everywhere. Life should be abundant on the globe, or excuse me, in the universe. And so you got this guy here. This is Enrico Fermi. And he posited that there is a contradiction between the high probability of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and the lack of evidence for them. Because their models state that life must be not just simply possible, it must be abundant. It should be more likely that life happens than likely that life doesn't happen. That's according to their models. In order for life to be as abundant as it is here on earth, it must therefore be abundant elsewhere. If that's the case, where's the aliens? Why are aliens fiction? If that's the case, why isn't there alien life elsewhere? Okay, so here's the deal. And so he actually wrote this. There it is. Apparent, high probability. And then it says, this is actually what he wrote in his book. If billions of habitable planets exist, where is everybody? Where is everybody? Where's all the other people? Where's all the other aliens? Not only do we have never encountered aliens themselves, we've got scientific equipment that is looking out in the night sky in every single direction, listening for any possible signal that we could possibly come up with every kind of instrument possible to look, whether it's radio signals or UHF signals or even just X-rays or gamma rays or something, microwaves, anything that says, if we could see that there's a microwave radiation coming, and it's like, look at that, the aliens are popping their popcorn because we see the radiation, right? We can't, nothing. We've been looking for 60, 70 years. SETI, that group I told you about, has been operating since the 70s. 50 years they've been pointing the world's biggest satellite dishes out into space, hoping desperately to find some alien life. Why? Because if we know that we're not alone, it proves the Bible wrong. And if it proves the Bible wrong, it proves evolution right. Right? And yet, nothing. Silence. All right, so you ready for this? Here's the science behind it. You knew it was going to get complicated. All right, this is what's called the Drake equation. This is what's called the Drake equation. Okay, N equals R times FP times NE times FL times FI times FC times L. So what in the world does that mean? All right, so let's go with this. It starts out with this. The N, oh no, I just have it on the notes here. Okay, N equals the number of civilizations currently transmitting signals depends on 7 factors. So the number of alien, or the number of civilizations, the number of potential intelligent living civilizations is dependent on these factors. Ready for them? The first is R, which is the yearly formation rate of stars hospitable to planets where life could develop. Okay, so we have first thing we're looking for are stars like our own, like our yellow sun, that could potentially have planets around them. All right? Stars that are in their formation cycle that would have potential planets around them. That's number one. Okay, that's easy to find. We can do that. There are some. Lots of stars we can find that are like our sun. Unless we want to look for red suns, then we can find Krypton, then we can find Superman. But right now we're looking for yellow suns. All right, so we need those kind of suns, hospitable suns. Then you have the fraction of those stars that actually have planets. And we can see those. We actually find what are called exoplanets. They are planets that are rotating around stars that are not our own sun. We can find those. We see them. We actually can watch them transit their stars. In other words, they pass between the star and us, and we can see its shadow go across that star. And we can see through other telemetry, we can find that, there's an exoplanet there. And like I said, they've found dozens, hundreds of these exoplanets. Okay, that narrows the field down. All right, we've got stars, we can find those stars. We have exoplanets, we can find the exoplanets. Wow, we're getting somewhere. We're narrowing that field down. All right, then the number of planets per solar system with conditions suitable for life. Okay, now we're in trouble. Because out of those dozens, hundreds of exoplanets that we've discovered, most of them are not in the habitable zone, meaning that they're too far away from the sun, from their star, too close to their star. They would be too cold or too hot, right? Which is why they need a Goldilocks zone. It's right in the middle, not too hot, not too cold. The ones in the Goldilocks zone are very, very few. Yeah. You're talking about other planets other than the 8 we've got? So there are no other planets in our solar system. So we've got the 8 planets in our solar system. There have been theoretical planets that we've not found in our solar system. There is a theoretical planet X. The theoretical planet X is a Earth, and it's actually sometimes called Vulcan. It's where Star Trek gets the Vulcans from. Is the theoretical planet that is exactly opposite Earth on the other side of the sun, that mimics our rotation around the sun so that we can never see it. Right? That was a theoretical one. Of course, we've put enough probes up in the sky. The Voyager probe went out and it didn't see any other planets out there, and it would have been able to pick up other planets, and it didn't send any information about that. So we've just got the 8 planets we've got. And I say 8 because it is 8. None of you are old enough to have even remembered Pluto as a planet, so give it up. It was like 2006, man. It was like 2006. I guess. I mean, you guys maybe have been like 2, 3, 4 years old, maybe, right? But here's the deal. All right. Here's the deal. I'm going to defend science here. All right. I'm going to defend science here. Pluto is not a planet. Pluto is what's called a dwarf planet. It is not a full-blown planet. There are several factors. What ended up happening was after we established the planets, the 8 planets, and by the way, at one point there was only 5, because there's only 5 that can be seen through a telescope. The remaining, I think it's remaining 3. No, maybe it's just remaining 2. We knew 6. 5 outside of Earth. And then the last 2, which is Neptune and Uranus, we needed actual telescopes to see, or not telescopes, but higher powered telescopes. But what's called the Galilean planets that actually all can be seen with the naked eye, that we've always known about: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Yeah, that's all of them. What are the ones you can see with the naked eye? Then, of course, they found Pluto and Neptune beyond Saturn, which are much, much further away, and you can't see them with the naked eye. And so you need a telescope to see them. But then eventually they found this rock floating way out past Neptune, and it was discovered like in 1912. All right, like in 1912 it was discovered, and they called it Pluto. What they've discovered was a rock way out in the distant solar system that had an irregular orbit. It's not orbiting on the same orbital plane as all the other planets. All the other planets are on a very thin orbital plane. We're all rotating around the sun in a very thin orbital plane. Pluto's orbit goes like this around that plane. So it's not even close to the orbital plane. It's tiny. And when I say it's tiny, it's smaller than our moon. It has a moon of its own, which is almost the same size as it. All right? Okay. And then in the late 80s or early 90s, or probably even before that, we started finding other objects in our solar system, particularly the asteroid belt, which is called the Kuiper belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter. That Kuiper belt is massive. It's got lots of rocks in it. And what they found were there is at least 2 rocks in the Kuiper belt that are bigger than Pluto. Why aren't they planets? They could be. And so that's what they started looking at it. Like, well, all right, now we're going to start, there's another planet, there's another planet. And if you name all of the rocks that are in the asteroid belt planets, we got a big problem. Now we've got millions of planets, not just 8. By the way, none of them are round. Pluto is not round. It looks round, but is not observable planets, are not mentioned by Scripture. The ancients did not, in the biblical times, they did not understand the planets to be rocks or actual planets, what we call planets. The word planet itself comes from a Greek word meaning wanderer. Because as they observed the planets, as they observed the stars, there were stars in the skies that didn't behave. There was like 6 stars in the sky that didn't behave. No, 5 stars in the skies that just didn't behave. They didn't stay put in the sky. But they look like stars. When you see them in the night sky, when you look up and you see the night sky and you see particularly the brightest one, the brightest star in the night sky is not a star. You may know what the brightest star in the sky is? It's Venus. That answers your question. Yes, Venus is mentioned several times in Scripture. It is the bright morning star. The morning and the evening star is Venus. That is the one that's mentioned. I'm sorry, yeah, you are. That just reminded me. Yes, the morning and the evening star is Venus. Okay, because it's the one that you see first. It's the one that you see last. Or in the dark, as the sun goes down, you'll see Venus before you see any of the other stars. And then in the morning, if you wake up and the sun is coming up, it's the last star that's in the sky before the sun comes up.
So is it like wrong for us to like seek out all this stuff? Like if it's not.
It's not wrong to be curious. Absolutely not. I'm immensely curious about this stuff. I love this stuff. But it's what I was saying before is about questioning God and whether or not there's aliens. God didn't tell us about aliens, so that pursuit to go find aliens when God said when God did not tell us there's aliens, it's a futile effort. But being curious about the stars in the sky, in the night sky, by the way, there's several times in Scripture where men of God are praised for their knowledge of the stars. Daniel is known for his ability to interpret the stars. Now, by interpreting the stars, there's a bit of a mystical component to that, but he was able to recognize those the seasons and such like that, right? And of course, it was the Magi that were watching the stars in the night, and that they saw this new star appear and brought them to Bethlehem. So yeah, watching the night sky and getting to know the night sky, there's actually some really cool stuff there to know. All right, sorry, let's get back to this. Where are we at? All right, number of planets that have suitable conditions for life. FL is the fraction of planets suitable for life on which life actually appears, and that's where we lose them. On which life actually appears. We don't have any of those. There are 0. Okay? But let's say those are hypothetical. Let's say those are potential. Then it would then be divided again by the fraction of planets with life on which intelligent life emerges. Not just life, but intelligent life. That goes down by another fraction. And then another fraction of planets with intelligent life that develops technologies such as radio transmission that we could detect. That goes down even further, yeah.
Does like bacteria count as life?
Yeah, that would count as organic life, but not intelligent life. That's right, yeah. Yep, no, good. Thank you. That was a good point.
We've never actually like found any bacteria.
Not even bacteria. Not even bacteria. And then, of course, the last one, L, is the average length of time in years that civilizations produce such signs. Right now, our civilization has only been able to send things out into into space, as in like radio transmissions and other signals that could be picked up by other planets. We've had that capability for about 100 years, maybe a little less. Like 100 years. And even in a biblical time scale of 6,000 years, 100 years is not very big. And of course, in their models, the Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. 100 years is not very long. And then, of course, their next statement then after that is, how long does civilization last after that? And of course, the nihilists, the kind of the downers of the groups say, well, probably not much longer after that. We're bound to destroy ourselves, right? And so basically, one of the solutions to this. Actually, let's get into that because here's their possible explanations as to why there's no life. They exist, but we can't see them. Okay, we don't see them. They do exist, but they're either too far away or too different. They're too far away, those signals can't reach us. If they're too different, their signals don't match us. We're not reading the same signals. They're intentionally hiding or avoiding detection. Right? They're actually so advanced that they know not to let anybody know that they exist. Or they're just not loud enough. They're not obvious enough. Maybe we just haven't looked hard enough. Our search is limited. We've only been looking for the last 50 years anyway. Another thing they say is space is big. I mean, that's true. Space is big, but we have been looking just about everywhere in every corner of the sky. But the space is big. I'll give them that. 3, and this is the one that they don't want to think. The actual conclusion that they need to come to is life is rare. Life is rare. They know that that's a possibility, but that's the one that they don't want to accept. Life is rare. Potentially, and of course, their explanations as to why life is rare is one, life is somehow self-destructive. That intelligent life is automatically self-destructive. Why? Because what do they see about our intelligent life? They see a sin-fallen world, right? Because they see a sin-fallen world, they assume that if all intelligent life leads to a sin-fallen world, it's not long for this world. Eventually, we will self-destruct without a gracious God. Okay, there's something they call the Great Filter. I don't know if I have a graphic on that or not. I'm trying to think if I can explain it. No, I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain that. You can look that one in the book. And then, of course, the final conclusion there, life is itself rare. Like there's, and by rare, I mean it's unique. It's unique to this planet. Biblical explanation is then Earth is designed for life, liquid water, oxygen-rich atmosphere, correct solar distance. We're in the not only in the habitable zone, we're not only in the, by the way, we're not only in the Goldilocks zone for our orbit around the sun, as in not too close, not too far away, but we also have like everything in the solar system is designed to protect and to proliferate life on Earth. Our moon is essential to life on Earth. The moon itself causes several things. Number one, it causes tides in the ocean. Without tides in the ocean, if the ocean is not sloshing around, moving toward the moon and away from the moon, right? As the moon orbits the planet, because there's two different tides. There's the tide when the moon is here, okay? The ocean kind of swells up to go toward the moon by a few feet. And then when it's on the other side of the planet, it's actually pushed down on this side because it's, again, going toward the moon. All right, so two different tidal conditions, again, both caused by the moon. If we didn't have tides, life would be very difficult on Earth. Tides are essential to life on Earth. The fact that we have Jupiter. Jupiter is actually really important to our survival. You say, well, how is Jupiter? Because Jupiter's big. Jupiter is really big. And so most of the debris, most of the comets and other things that could potentially crash into Earth find find Jupiter first, because Jupiter's big. And so it absorbs a lot of things that could potentially be life-ending, catastrophic asteroids hitting Earth. A lot of them get swept up by Jupiter. A lot of them get swept up by our moon. By the way, when you look up at the moon, right, the moon has like that shape on it, right? Some people say it's the man on the moon, or some people say it looks like a woman that's holding up a baby, right? Those are craters, lots of craters. Those are craters that are facing us because the moon does not rotate in respect to the Earth. We always see the exact same side of the moon. So as the moon is going around the Earth, its face is always facing the Earth. That side of the moon is always facing the Earth. You know what the other side of the moon looks like? It looks like Swiss cheese. It's pocked with craters all over it. It's unnavigable. Why? Because it's catching all the debris that's coming toward Earth. It's picking up, it's like a little vacuum cleaner going around the Earth and picking up all that debris, and it's hitting the moon before it hits us. It's amazing that God made it that way. By the way, how many of you have ever witnessed a lunar eclipse? Or excuse me, a solar eclipse? Okay. How many of you have seen at least a lunar eclipse? All right. It should be all of you. I mean, it's kind of common. All right. At least lunar eclipses are kind of common. Solar eclipses are less common, but they're really cool. Okay. Usually up here in Alaska, we don't get them. When we first moved up here 2015, there was a partial eclipse. Really fun to watch. By the way, don't look at a solar eclipse. Okay. You can't see the pictures that they show you. Right? It's the best way to view a solar eclipse is through a pinhole and a box. You take a box, you put a pinhole in it, and you hold it up so that the sun, the pinhole is facing the sun, and then you look at the back of the box. And on the back of the box, you'll see a pinhole of light. You'll see that like a laser light, and you can actually see the carving out of the moon in that thing. It's really kind of cool. But a complete solar eclipse just a couple years ago, there's a really big one. Have you ever wondered why it is that the moon is exactly the right size and distance from the Earth so that when it passes between the earth and the sun, and when it appears, even just when it appears in the nights in the sky, the earth, or the moon and the sun kind of appear to be the same size, even though the sun is a lot more lot more miles away. It's greater distance away than the moon, but it's also much bigger than the moon. But that distance, perspective-wise, means that when the moon goes in front of the sun, it covers it perfectly with just like a little ring of light around it. You ever wondered how it is that our moon is perfectly in orbit so that when it goes in front of the sun, it's perfectly ringed by the sun? What's the likelihood of that? I mean, I'm talking perfect. Pow. What's the likelihood that a rock just randomly started floating around the earth, just was caught by the earth, or maybe it formed outside of the earth or whatever, and it just happened to start floating around the earth, and when it did, every once in a while it just goes right between and is ringed. Did you have a point, or you just going?
No, I'm just doing it.
You're just doing the thing. It was that is like incredibly accurate to be random. It can't be random. All right, let's move forward. So the cultural hype here, so a UFO, all right? What is a UFO? UFO is an unidentified flying object. Interestingly enough, the guy that coined the term UFO thought that when people thought it was going to be an acronym rather than an initialism, and so the guy that coined the phrase, or coined the term UFO, throughout his life, always called it an UFO. Thankfully, that didn't pick up. Unidentified flying objects. No unidentified flying objects are not alien. Sorry, they're not. None of them are. There's lots of possible explanations for unidentified flying objects. The number one thing to know about unidentified flying objects is that they are unidentified. They could be planets, satellites, meteors, weather phenomena, any number of different human-made phenomena. Notice that UFOs didn't exist until man had the ability to fly. You ever wondered that? All of a sudden, UFOs were never a thing. The ancient Greeks didn't talk about UFOs. The ancient Egyptians didn't talk about UFOs. All the way through the Enlightenment period, there's no UFOs. All of a sudden, man gets the ability to fly, starts flying all over the place, starts creating things that fly up in the air, and all of a sudden there's UFOs. The rate of UFO sightings is direct to the number of objects that are flying in the sky. When there's no things flying in the sky, there's no UFOs. Now we're throwing things up in the sky, and all of a sudden there's things flying in the sky. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they came from. Joe Rogan does. Okay. If you interpret it through your worldview, though, an aesthetic naturalist worldview ends up misinterpreting observations. A biblical worldview expects that unexplained sightings without jumping to alien conclusions. There's lots of different explanations for UFOs, ranging from the psychosis of the person seeing them, all right, ranging to lots of different government experiments and such like that, all right? Our government is doing stuff all the time that you are completely unaware of, all right? All the time. You notice that most UFO sightings are kind of limited to the United States of America? They don't really have UFO sightings in Africa, you know that? They don't really have them in Southeast Asia. I wonder why that is. What's that? Well, that's true. Well, we all know that when the aliens attack, they're attacking New York City. Absolutely. No questions asked. When the aliens attack, it's going to be New York City. All right. Where am I at here? All right, so why the cultural hype, reasons for alien fascination, desire to prove evolution is true, because if alien life is is common, then it's more likely than not that it exists. If it is, we have cosmic loneliness because of sin, because of depravity, because we live in a sin-fallen world. We look to the stars and hope that there is some kind of utopia that's not on this planet. Notice how a lot of science fiction, alien species are always more advanced than we are. That's their hope. They're longing for heaven is what they're looking for. They're longing for a time when this world will be at peace. And maybe somebody else has figured it out because they don't have an answer. They don't know how to get it here on earth. They're hoping that there's an alien race that can come and teach us and tell us how to be civilized or have utopia here on earth. Hope for advanced alien wisdom or technology. Okay. Surely they know stuff that we don't. They look for healing. Maybe they have healings to diseases that we have. Maybe they have answers to life's purpose. And as everybody knows, that if you hitchhike through the galaxy, you know what the meaning of life in all things is. It's 42. Oh, there we go. Answers life's purpose. That's right. Perhaps even eternal life. Maybe they've answered the mystery of death. Maybe they've figured out how to stop this thing called death. And they could teach us, they could tell us how to stop death. We could have eternal life. Notice all of those things we can look to God to. We can look to Scripture for. All of those things we don't need aliens for. All those longings, those deep longings that the humans have. We don't need aliens. Except for in our science fiction. I want to keep them there. I like them there. I love them in science fiction. But let's leave them there. All right, let's recognize that is fantasy. Only God meets these needs. Rejecting God leads to replacing Him with other created beings. Notice Romans 1, 18 to 32. When we reject God, when we suppress His truth and unrighteousness, what do we end up doing? We don't worship the creator, we worship the creation. All right, so the conclusion, there's no evidence for extraterrestrial life, and that's not just our problem, that's everybody's problem. There's no evidence for it anywhere. In fact, they call it a paradox. Earth is God's unique creation, spiritually central in the universe. The truth is not out there. The truth is in God's Word. You know, the old X-Files, the truth is out there. No, the truth is in here. And starting from the Bible makes the universe and its apparent uniqueness make sense. Okay? So I'm sorry to be a downer. Yes, aliens exist in science fiction. And that's where we can keep them. All right? Yes? No. No, because alien means foreign. Alien means not from here. Angels are messengers created by God, specifically Hebrews chapter 1, verse 14, specifically to be ministers to those who would inherit salvation, so they are from here. So they're not technically aliens. They belong here.
Can we then consider demons aliens? Since they
No. Okay, I am not going to go there. There are a lot of biblical scholars, some of whom are friends of mine, that want to go in the direction of UFOs and all of those things are actually just demons. I ain't going there. Demons are demons. Hallucinations are hallucinations. All right. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. I want to get into another subject if we can. Did what? Ice Age. Oh, you want to do Ice Age? I was hoping to do Distant Starlight.
Like in that tree, it looks like there's like a triangle thing. So it looks like a shape.
Oh yeah.
It looks like the Illuminati kind of.
Oh, it looks like I see. It's a triangle with the yeah.
Or Bill Cipher if you watch.
Yep, it's it. Aliens did it.
I feel like that's the only person
Oh yeah, the aliens. If you watch the History Channel, that's the answer to everything.
I see the Illuminati in that. I saw Bill Cipher first, who was basically the same thing.
I'm down to 22%. Come on, you can do it.
I knew that Pluto was a dwarf planet. I just didn't really know what that meant, so I just said a planet.
Yeah, dwarf planet. There are at least 3 other identified dwarf planets. Ceres and Ares are in the asteroid belt, and then there's at least one other, if not more. They're finding them all the time in the Kuiper belt, which is where Pluto is. Pluto is just an object in the Kuiper belt. It's an icy object in the Kuiper belt. I'm gonna grab my water bottle. All right, if we get together now, we can finish up. We got about a half hour to cover one more subject. I'd like to get through that if we can. So we've got to choose from. We have, what about the gap in Reconstruction? Anybody want to do gap theory? Good, thank you. Anybody want to do Ice Age? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. How many would like to do distant starlight? Okay, all right. Looks like Ice Age a little bit more than that. And then what about, does God's creation include death and suffering? Or why does God's creation include death and suffering? Okay, let's do Ice Age. Let's do Ice Age. I'll let you guys do distant starlight in your papers. All right. Here it is. There we go. Can we watch Ice Age? No. All right. All right, here we go. Let's talk about where does the Ice Age fit in. Does anybody care about Sid the Sloth? They left me. They do this every year. Why? Doesn't anybody love me? Isn't there anybody that cares about Sid the Sloth? All right. There we go. All right, let's talk about the Ice Age, and it is certainly a popular topic because, actually, a lot of it because of the movies, the Ice Age movies, has made it very popular. Although it certainly was popular even before that, a lot of it focuses on entertainment rather than history, and a lot of it is mixing things up. By the way, the same thing with dinosaurs. Even secular, naturalist, atheistic people like PBS and Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks, when they do things on dinosaurs or Ice Age, they don't stick to their own rules. Jurassic Park, right? Of course, Jurassic Park is different because it's like we've recreated these dinosaurs to all live on this island together, right? And they even acknowledge, like, okay, yeah, it's called Jurassic Park, but only like one of these dinosaurs actually was in the Jurassic period. Most of them are in other periods, and they would have never, according to their models, never walked on the face of the earth together at all, right? Same thing with Ice Age. Lots of confusion around the Ice Age. All right? How many of you, if I were to just say, what was the Ice Age? What if I were to ask you, what is the Ice Age? Okay, it was cold. What else? Okay. I mean, just think in just terms of what is it? Not a lot of fun. Okay. It was a time period when what happened? Say it again. The entire earth froze. That's wrong. Because even all of the secular models of the Ice Age don't cover the whole earth. Not even close. The Ice Age really only comes down to about Nebraska. And that's just in North America. What is in Nebraska? Corn, a lot of corn. A lot of corn in Nebraska. And oddly enough, chili and cinnamon rolls together. Like a cinnamon roll with like chili on top of it. That's evidently a Nebraska thing. I did not know that was a Nebraska thing, but evidently that's a Nebraska thing. All right? But here's the deal. In the Eastern Hemisphere, it barely covered northern Russia. It barely covered most of Europe, let alone the Middle East. The Middle East is, in the Mediterranean basin, are completely free of ice. Even in during the last great ice age, according to the most liberal of calculations. All right? And so there's a lot of misinformation out there. This idea that the ice age covered the whole earth, where does that come from? I think it comes from the secular atheists who want us to all think that there's no possible way that human life could have existed on earth during an ice age. It's a time when the world's, all of the animals of the earth were just frozen solid. Well, yeah, the ones that were up north did, but the ones that were not north didn't. All right, so let's talk about this. Secular uninformation, secular uniformitarian perspectives dominate public understanding, but lack a viable mechanism for even one ice age. They don't even know how the ice age happened. Why? I mean, they talk about global warming, right? Global warming is this big thing. I'd like to know what factories were built that brought us out of the last ice age. What cars were driving around that caused us to come out of the last ice age? Because the globe warmed quite a bit after the last ice age, right? So, in fact, even a lot of secular science. Do you know the reason why people like Greta Thunberg and most of the left doesn't even talk about climate change anymore? They've moved on. They're on to a completely different subject now. They're on free Palestine and trans things, and they don't even talk about climate change anymore. Why? Because it's not man-made. They know it's not man-made. All right? That was all a ruse to be able to grab various power structures. Okay? The Bible offers a consistent explanation for the ice age, which is rooted in the global flood. That the flood itself caused the ice age, the one ice age, not multiple, just one. Okay, let's talk about some of these different things. You guys probably know a few of these. You guys know what a glacier is. All right, many of you have probably even been on a glacier. Okay, pretty awesome. It's a large mass of ice that accumulated from snow cover over the years and is slowly moving moving away from and melting back. By the way, yes, the glaciers are melting. Yes, the glaciers are melting. The glaciers are receding. Even just 30 years ago, which one is it? It's the big one down toward Whittier. What's the big one toward Whittier? You used to be able to see that from the road. Yeah. You used to be able to see that from the road. You can't see it from the road anymore. The Matanuska Glacier is retreating. We know it is. But guess what? Matanuska Glacier used to cover Anchorage. It's been retreating for the last couple of 1,000 years. Even when Captain Cook was up here, most of this was under the Matanuska Glacier. Just 100 years ago. Or maybe not, maybe more than whatever Captain Cook was. 200 years ago. Right? It's like, yes, the glaciers are melting. Thank goodness we can now see some more cool stuff underneath. Right? There's a reason why Matsu Valley, the number one export for Matsu Valley is gravel. Why? Because it's all left over from the glacier melting. All right. So yeah, there are glaciers, and yes, they are melting. Then you have what are called moraines. A moraine is Stones, boulders, debris that have been carried and dropped by the glaciers. Like I said, we see those all the time. You go drive around here. If you dig in the ground in the Matanuska Valley, all right, you get lots of big boulders and rocks and all sorts of things. That's all left over from the glacier. That's how it works, okay? As it recedes, all those rocks that are caught in the ice just drop out of it. All of our rivers are just embedded with rocks all around them because they're coming out of that, and that's one of the reasons why you don't want to be swimming in a glacier like the Matanuska or the Knik or some of those, because there's a lot of rocks floating through there. Okay, they're extremely cold, extremely fast, lots of silt. The Copper River is probably one of the most dangerous rivers to be on. If you fall into the Copper River, very little chance of survival, because it's just filled with silt and rock and extremely cold, very, very fast. Okay, uniformitarianism is the belief that all things are today pretty much like they were in the past. That there is no catastrophic anything, that everything just kind of moves in the same speed that it's moving now. The glaciers have been receding at the same rate that they've always been receding, right? Uniformitarianism. There's no such thing as major global catastrophes like the flood. Okay, the word interglacial, there we go, interglacial means that they are the short period of warming between glacier growth and movement. Okay, that caused glaciers to melt away. We do see that where glaciers can grow and then they can shrink back and grow and shrink back. Okay, an ice core is this thing here. Okay, an ice core is when you drill down into the ice of a glacier or something, the ice sheets, particularly in Juneau, right? You can drill down in and you pull out an ice core, and what they do then is that ice core, they can, no, I don't have a picture of it. I thought I had a better picture of it, where they can see that freezing and melting and freezing and melting, and it's kind of, they read it like it's rings of a tree, and they can say, oh, this is what's happened over the years. Okay. And okay. All right. So evidence of the Ice Age. At least the Ice Age only covered about 30% of the Earth. Yeah.
So if you're drilling down into a glacier, why would they have layers in a glacier if all the glaciers were like frozen at one time? You know what I mean? Or like,
Right.
why would you have rings? Like, I understand in a tree.
Right. So the question is, are all of those layers, did those all happen within each season, or with and if it's freezing and melting and freezing and melting, you end up with like rings of a tree, right? You can say, oh, each of these is a year, each of these is a season of growth, right? These, we don't know if those are years or not. Right? Just because something is melting and refreezing, that can happen within days. Something can melt and freeze and melt and freeze and melt and freeze.
If the glaciers are receding, then at a faster rate than they're growing,
Right.
still shouldn't have rings, because
Right.
it's still going to be like a progression down instead of up, right?
Right. So yes, it would. It would. But again, the uniformitarianism is essentially saying that there is no other explanation other than they were all there 10,000 years ago, and because they believe that they're 10,000 years old. If you start with the idea that they're 10,000 or 15 or 20,000 years old, then you drill down and you see, oh, there's all these layers, and you only see 20 layers. You're going to say, okay, well that is a long period of melting, rather than that was Tuesday, right? Right. That's my point. Okay, we don't know if those rings equals years or seasons or whatever, right? Okay. It covered about 30% of the Earth's surface. That's it. You can see this is one of the models here. You can see that it barely covered the southern hemisphere at all. It was mostly a northern hemisphere phenomena. It really only came down to North America. Really kind of got hit hard there, all the way down to about the Great Plains, but south of that was fine. Same thing with the Russia and Europe were kind of hit hard. Western Europe was fine. Almost all of the Middle East was fine. The mountains around Turkey were covered, but mostly where Israel is, northern Africa, just fine. That's why you can have an ice age happening at the same time that they're building the pyramids. Right? You don't have to have 10,000 years between ice age and pyramids. Yeah.
What are the red spots?
You know, I don't know. I pulled that image. I have no idea what the red spots are. No. No. Oh, you know what it is? That's where waters would have receded to. So that all that very well could have been exposed land, right? Because if it's all in ice up in the northern hemisphere, that all could have been at land at some point. Yeah, that's why you get these. So like the most significant one is here, right? That's where we are. That becomes a land bridge because there's not enough water. Okay, you can have a land bridge. In fact, this one doesn't show it, but the actual there is a path that goes straight from Russia all the way down through. But I think it's between the Brooks Range and the Talkeetna Range. I think it is. There's a path that's actually was not frozen at all. That's where the vast majority of the native people groups came down through. Okay. North America, an ice sheet covered Canada and northern U.S., like I said, all the way down to about Nebraska. Oh, come on, there we go. Geological features indicating glaciation. We have lateral moraines, terminal moraines. We have scratched bedrock. All of those things we are evidence of an ice age. All right, so we don't have. In other words, as creationists, we don't deny the presence of an ice age. As creationists, we don't say, "Oh yeah, that's just mythological. That's just we can explain that with something else." No, we actually don't have a problem with an ice age. There's plenty of evidence for an ice age. We don't have to reject it. Okay, the uniformitarian view. So in the past, they originally believed that there were 4 ice ages. 4 ice ages in their view. In the 1970s, they moved to about 30 cycles. Okay, they said, oh, there's like 30 different ice ages. Currently, their model is about 8 cycles, or 8 major cycles, over a period of 800,000 years. Okay, and again, a lot of that is because they're doing the ice cores, and they're saying that all of that melting and refreezing is within hundreds of thousands of years, not just simply a matter of hundreds of years. Okay, the astronomical model, orbital changes in Earth's geometry cause climate shifts, which we're seeing today. The climate change we see today, the global warming we see today, primarily caused by the oceans, not by man. It's the oceans heating up. And that's, we see El Nino, La Nina, you see all of these weather patterns happening because and most of that is actually happening, the heat that's in the oceans, primarily caused by underground volcanic activity, geothermic activity that heats up the oceans. Not from above, but from beneath. It's not the carbon in the atmosphere that's heating up the planet. We have evidence of, even in the secular models, they have evidence of carbon in the atmosphere going all the way back to during the different ages of the dinosaurs and such like that. They'll say, there was this much carbon in the atmosphere during that period and this much carbon in the atmosphere during that period. And those periods were colder, warmer. the amount of carbon in the atmosphere does not necessarily affect the climate as much as geothermic activity, volcanoes, magma, because that's some pretty hot stuff, and it's spewing lots of stuff into the atmosphere. All right. Let's see here. They say that there were 4 main alleged ice age incidents that were millions of years ago. The problem with that is there's no adequate cause for dramatic cooling and sustained snow accumulation. All right, there was no such thing as a snowball Earth. All right, there's no such thing as an Earth that's covered entirely by snow. In fact, the experts admit that the causes for the ice age remain unknown. The biblical model, climate changes from the flood itself was so catastrophic that it caused changes to Earth's atmosphere. All right, when you talk about the breaking open of the great deep, the breaking open of the fountains of the deep is what Scripture calls it. We actually know that there is a table of water underneath the earth. We dig down to it to get wells. Right? All of that water that's under the earth is equal to the amount of water that's in the oceans. And if all of that spews forward, if all of that comes out, and by the way, the mountains didn't exist at that time, not the high ones. All of those are created by the sloshing around of water on the earth. We're talking about miles deep of water that's shifting. By the way, the other aspect of it was the breaking open of the earth. We'll talk about this, I think, tomorrow if we do so, because we'll do a lot of the flood stuff tomorrow. Essentially the earth cracked like an egg. Pre-flood, all the earth didn't have tectonic plates, I don't believe. It was all just one crust. And when the fountains of the deep broke open, that statement is why we have tectonic plates. And those tectonic plates started shifting wildly at the very beginning, causing deep crevices in the ocean and massive mountains on land. And the current continents that we see didn't exist before the flood. They're results of the flood. The topography of the earth before the flood was completely unrecognizable by today's standards. We wouldn't have recognized it. The idea of Pangea did exist. I don't think it looked quite like what their models say, because their models are wildly different all over the place. But the idea that most of the exposed land was all together in one place, and all of the water was kind of we're not talking about deep oceans or high mountains. We're just talking about, everything's kind of a little more gradual, right? Instead, when the flood hits, everything is catastrophic. I mean, everything just changes. The whole earth changes all within 1 year. Water sloshing all over the place. The tectonic plates. I actually, to a degree, and again, this is speculation. I will give you that. This is speculation. I believe that the earth, while always was at a tilt, I think that the breaking open of the deep caused the earth to wobble. What we see today is that the earth wobbles on its axis. It's not perfectly at that 23.8 degrees. It wobbles. Why? Because you had a globe that was spinning, and when you spin a top, and something happens to it, like the fountains of the deep breaking open, that thing's starting to wobble now. All right? Yeah.
What impact would the wobble introduce as opposed to what it was?
Shifting. See, the seasons aren't as systematic as they used to be. Now you have deeply changed. We have drastically different seasons. Now, the seasons themselves are still the same, but you now have like really cold winters, and then the next winter is really warm winter, and whereas it would have been a little more even, I think, before the flood. What's that?
Consistent.
Yeah, consistent. Yeah. Okay. And now we have ice and snow where we didn't have it before. I don't think there was snow and ice before the flood. I think snow and ice is actually a direct result of the flood. What we see as the earth pre-flood, where the mist comes up from the garden and it waters everything, I think the topography of the earth was considerably different before flood. So when the flood happens and the waters recede and Noah and his family come off of the ark, they're looking at a desolate atmosphere. They're looking at something that looks completely drastically different than when they got on the boat. They come off that and they're looking at the mountains of Ararat, which are like pretty desolate. And then they migrate down very, very quickly to what's called Mesopotamia, between the rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates. By the way, the reason why they call them the Tigris and Euphrates is because they were the two of the four rivers that were in Eden, or coming out of Eden. By the way, that's not a landmark. Those are named for those rivers, because by the time they come off the boat, they come across two rivers. Oh, that must be the Tigris. That must be the Euphrates. They're just the first two rivers they came to.
Wonder if that's because they thought they were in
Yeah.
or that was supposed to be
Right.
again,
Yeah.
this must be Eden
Yeah.
for these.
That boat floated for a year, right? Eden could have been on the other side of the planet, for all we know. Eden could have been Hawaii. I don't know. Could have been here. Could have been Alaska. It probably was. Absolutely. Yeah. Right? That boat floated for a year. We don't know what location on earth Eden would have been. By the time it comes down, by the time the ark comes down, it didn't just float, stay there, and then drop. That thing floated around the earth for a year, sloshed around by water, with no navigation tools, with no possible way to steer that thing. They were just crashed about or moved about by the waves and the tides for a full year. And by the time that thing finally settled down on a mountain, they come down off that ark, they're looking around saying, I guess this is where we are now.
It's pretty impressive they actually landed on land.
Yeah, right? Well, they could have been floating around since the earth is 70% water. But I will say this, it's very likely that they would have snagged on a mountain, though. So as they're floating around, right, as the waters are starting to recede, right, it's actually very likely that they would have snagged on a mountain. And so they did. That's why they end up on a mountain. Right? They're up in the mountains of Ararat. What's that? All right. So let's go continue on here. Climate changes from the flood. Is that where we are? Where are we at? Yeah, climate changes from the flood. You have massive volcanism, tectonic activity. That's volcanism meaning volcanoes, right? Tectonic activity. Volcanic aerosols cause cooler summers. In other words, as the volcanoes are shooting magma and gases out into the atmosphere, okay, you've got vastly different cooler summers, blotting out the sun. Warm oceans from floodwaters led to high evaporation, heavy snow near the poles. One of the things that is really interesting to think about, okay, the oceans are salty, right? The oceans are salty, right? But waters on land, like lakes and rivers, are freshwater. And freshwater doesn't mix with salt water, right? Or when it does, it's like and so think about as the waters are sloshing around, you've got fresh water, salt water, you've got all sorts of minerals and deposits all in that water, and because salt water can hold temperature differently, or holds temperature differently than fresh water does, and it's not mixing and it's smashing together. Have you ever seen where the Gulf of Alaska meets the Pacific Ocean? There's literally a line inside in the ocean. You can look it up. It's where the Gulf of Alaska meets the Pacific Ocean. And on this side of the line, the water looks this way, and on that side of the line, it looks different. And that water does not mix in the middle of the ocean. It's just a line right in the middle of the ocean. All right. Imagine the Straits of what's called the Straits of Magellan, right? The Drake Passage, right? The Drake Passage. Imagine the entire world filled with essentially what is the Drake Passage, where the Pacific Ocean meets the Atlantic Ocean.
So then that would be like how freshwater and saltwater marine animals can survive?
Yeah.
Because they would stay in their respective waters?
Yeah, they would stay in their respective waters because they don't necessarily mix. All right. So yeah, you can have, and of course, as that all kind of siphons out and filters out. All right. One of the problems is you have the atmosphere just changes, and as the oceans warm, and they warm up the atmosphere, you end up with the melting. Okay. You also have. It's very likely that that when the flood happened, the waters that prevailed over the earth might not have all been liquid. It could be that the ice age not only was after the flood, could have been concurrent with the flood. So that's why you have all the animals just frozen right there in solid water, in ice. All right, let's see here. Where am I at? Warm oceans for cooler summers, plus cooler summers. Combination only possible in a post-flood environment. Okay. Meteorological modeling demonstrates the accumulation of massive sheets in their models, less than 500 years, not over 10,000 or 500,000 years that or 100,000 years that their old models had. Okay, what we're looking at is a rapid single ice age, not 8 different periods of ice ages that went through hundreds of thousands of years. Let's see here. We're running out of time. I'm just going to try to get through as quickly as possible. Estimated timeline: about 500 years total. About 200 years for the ice to melt back. This would have all been after the flood, and so all of that period of the early patriarchs, the time of the Egyptians, the time of the Hittites, is when you have the ice age happening. Okay, so it's very likely. By the way, the book of Job, one of the biblical references to the flood. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and skip straight to that. Let me get all the way up to it. There we go. In Job 38. In Job 38. Remember, Job is probably the oldest book of the Bible. Was originally an epic poem that would have been memorized and passed down through oral tradition. Moses is the one, I believe, who picked up the pen and wrote it down. Job 38, verses 29 and 30. For whose womb comes the ice and the frost of heavens? Who gives it birth? The waters harden like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. The oldest book of the Bible referencing the deep frozen things. By the way, we don't really see that in other places in Scripture. There's very, very few references to snow in the Bible, mostly because Israel is in a temperate climate. There is snow. There talks about that our sins are washed white as snow and that type of thing, but was not a common thing for them to deal with. Snow. Okay. Let's see here. Let's talk about this ancient ice age. Let's reinterpret. Let's reconsider. Mystery of the woolly mammoths. The post-flood ice age provided favorable conditions for migration to northern regions, especially those kind of animals that came off the boat that had fur, lots of fur, and were suited for better climates. As they came off the boat, they went north. Right? And as they went north, they froze in the ice, and we have them there. Okay, let's see here. A later, colder, drier climate with strong dust storms caused those mass deaths. Rapid burial in dust led to preservation and permafrost. Okay, let's look at this. Do I have that picture of the glacial lake? No, I do not. I thought I had a picture of the glacial lake in Missoula. Formed during the Ice Age by ice-dammed valleys in Montana. The catastrophic burst caused massive flooding in the Pacific Northwest, initially rejected due to anti-biblical bias, but it's now been accepted. So the idea is that we see these things happening, and we don't have to reject them. We have a place for them in our scriptures. We have a place for them just after. And by the way, Earth is big. Things can happen on Earth at the same time. All right? Biblical account can be happening. Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and the Egyptians and all of that can be happening while the woolly mammoths are freezing up north. All right, that's all happening at the same time. That's not the we don't have an ice age that covers the whole earth in snow and ice that we have to account for in our biblical model. All right, I think we're done. Any questions about the Ice Age that I didn't answer? No? Okay. Say it again? Did who exist? Sid? Sid with the sloth. Sloth exists, yeah. I mean, you could call one of them Sid if you want. That's your right if you want to call him Sid. Who knows? Maybe when Adam named all the animals, he called sloth Sid. I don't know. All right. Well, you guys are dismissed, and the other ones that we didn't get to, the distant starlight, why is there evil, and what was the third one we didn't get to? Whichever the first one was. Gap theory. Those are the three you can choose from.